Captain Lee Tejo stood on the bridge of the Soul's Pride and watched the massive space station grow larger on his screen. Nexus 7 was bigger than any city on Earth. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved around it, like insects around a bright light. Some of the alien vessels were so large that Earth's entire fleet could fit inside their cargo holds. "Captain, we're getting scanning signals from multiple sources," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Park Min-soo. The young man's face showed worry. "They're trying to look inside our ships." Lee nodded calmly. He had expected this. "Let them scan. Make sure our shields look normal. Not too strong, not too weak." Behind him, Ambassador Park Soo-jin adjusted, her formal diplomatic uniform. She was a small woman, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She had spent years preparing for this moment. Earth's first official contact with the Galactic Trade Council would determine humanity's future among the stars. "How many ships are out there?" she asked. "Over 300, replied Commander Yoon Jae-sung from his position at the tactical station. He was in charge of Earth's escort fleet, 12 small ships that looked simple and old compared to the alien vessels around them. "The biggest one is that Velthari dreadnought. It's almost 10 kilometers long." The ambassador walked to the main viewing screen. The Velthari ship looked like a floating city made of dark metal and glowing lights. Smaller ships flew around it in perfect formation. She could see weapon ports along its sides that were bigger than Earth's entire diplomatic vessel. "They want us to feel small," she said quietly. "They want us to be afraid." Captain Lee joined her at the screen. "Are you afraid, Ambassador?" She smiled slightly. "No. Are you?" "Not at all." The Soul's Pride moved closer to the station. Other ships made way for them, but not out of respect. The alien vessels moved like adults stepping aside for a child. Their ships were so much bigger that the human fleet looked like toys floating in space. "Incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant Park. "It's from the station's docking control." "Put it through," ordered the captain. A strange voice filled the bridge. The translator made it sound flat and emotionless, but Lee could hear the arrogance underneath. "Human vessels, you will dock at Outer Ring Section C. Small ship berths only. Do not approach the main docking areas. You are not authorized for capital ship facilities." Commander Yoon's jaw tightened. Section C was where they put cargo haulers and private yachts. It was an insult, and everyone on the bridge knew it. "Acknowledged, Nexus 7 Control," replied Captain Lee calmly. "We will comply with your instructions." As they moved toward their assigned docking area, more alien ships appeared on their sensors. A group of Krillian war vessels emerged from behind the station. Massive angular ships covered in spikes and weapon clusters. They looked like flying weapons designed only for destruction. "Show-offs," muttered Commander Yoon. The Krillian ships performed a complex maneuver, spinning and diving in perfect coordination. It was clearly meant to impress or intimidate anyone watching. The human crew watched quietly, but Lee noticed that Yoon was recording everything with their passive sensors. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park, "we're receiving a general broadcast. It's being sent to all ships in the area." "Let's hear it." The voice that came through the speakers was deep and harsh. The translator identified it as Velthari. "Attention all vessels. This is High Admiral Krexmore of the Velthari Imperial Navy. We welcome all legitimate representatives to Nexus 7. We especially welcome our newest guest from the small world called Earth." There was a pause, and Lee could hear laughter in the background. Other aliens were listening to this broadcast. "We understand that these humans have brought their entire naval fleet to this gathering," the Admiral continued. "All 12 of their tiny ships? How impressive. We look forward to showing them what real naval power looks like." More laughter filled the channel. Ambassador Park's face remained calm, but Lee could see her hands clench into fists. The broadcast continued. "Perhaps, during their stay, these humans can learn about proper ship construction and fleet organization. The Velthari Empire is always willing to educate primitive civilizations." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. "Bastards," whispered Lieutenant Park. "Language," warned Captain Lee, but his voice was gentle. He was angry too, but he had expected this treatment. Earth had prepared for it. Commander Yoon stood up from his station. "Captain, should I send a response?" "No," said Ambassador Park firmly. "We say nothing. We do nothing. We let them think whatever they want. To think." The Soul's Pride and its escort reached their assigned docking area. The berths were small and simple, clearly designed for unimportant ships. But the human vessels docked smoothly and efficiently, their crews working with practiced precision. As they prepared to disembark, Captain Lee received a priority message on his personal communicator. The text was brief. "Package received, contents verified, proceed as planned." He smiled slightly and deleted the message. "Ambassador, are you ready for this?" Park Soo-jin checked her appearance one last time. She wore a simple but elegant Earth-style dress uniform. No weapons, no obvious technology, nothing that would make the aliens see her as a threat. She looked exactly like what they expected, a representative from a small backward planet trying to join the galactic community. "I'm ready," she said. "Remember, everyone, we are exactly what we appear to be. Nothing more, nothing less." The docking tube connected with a soft thud. Beyond the airlock, alien atmosphere and gravity waited. The first humans to officially enter galactic space were about to take their first steps into a much larger universe. As they walked through the tube, Commander Yoon stayed behind on the ship. His job was to coordinate the escort fleet while the diplomatic team was away. He watched his screens carefully as alien ships continued to arrive at the station. More and more vessels appeared, some curious about the new humans, others clearly planning to use this gathering as a show of strength. "Sir," said his communications officer, "the hegemony trade ships are requesting permission to scan our cargo holds." "Denied," replied Yoon immediately. "Tell them our cargo contains sensitive diplomatic materials." "They're insisting, sir. They say all ships must submit to security scans." Yoon considered this. He could force the issue, but that would cause problems for the ambassador. Better to let them scan and see exactly what they expected to see. "Fine. Allow passive scans only. No active penetration of our hull." The alien scanners swept over the human ships. Yoon watched the readings on his screen, knowing exactly what the aliens would find. Basic fusion engines, simple weapon systems, standard life support, computer systems that looked decades behind galactic technology. Nothing impressive. Nothing threatening. Nothing that showed the truth about human capabilities. On the station, Ambassador Park and Captain Lee walked through corridors filled with dozens of different alien species. Some were tall and thin, others short and wide. Some had scales. Others had fur or skin like rubber. All of them stared at the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. They reached the main diplomatic hall, a huge space with a dome that showed the stars outside. Representatives from major galactic powers sat in designated areas, each group showing off their species' wealth and technology. The human delegation was shown to a small section near the back, with simple chairs and basic equipment. It was clearly the area reserved for minor civilizations and unimportant visitors. Ambassador Park sat down calmly and activated her translation device. Around the hall, she could hear conversations in dozens of languages. Many of them were about the humans. Look how primitive their technology is. Those ships couldn't fight off a cargo hauler. Why did we even invite them? She listened and said nothing. Captain Lee sat beside her, equally calm. They both knew that every word, every gesture, every reaction was being watched and analyzed. High Admiral Crexmore entered the hall with a group of Velthari officers. The aliens were tall and muscular, with dark blue skin and silver eyes that seemed to glow. They wore elaborate uniforms covered in medals and rank insignia. The Admiral's presence filled the room. He was clearly used to being the most important person wherever he went. He looked directly at the human section and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "So," he announced loudly, "the famous human delegation has arrived. Welcome to real civilization." The hall fell quiet. Every alien in the room turned to watch what would happen next. This was clearly a test. Would the humans respond with anger? Fear? Would they try to defend themselves? Ambassador Park stood up slowly. She was less than half the Admiral's height, and her simple uniform looked plain compared to his elaborate costume. She looked like a child standing next to a giant. "Thank you for your welcome, High Admiral," she said calmly. "We are honored to be here." Her voice was steady and polite. No anger, no fear, no challenge. She looked exactly like what everyone expected, a primitive human trying to be polite to her superiors. The Admiral's smile widened. "I trust your journey was not too difficult for your modest vessels?" "Not at all," replied Park. "Our ships performed exactly as expected." This brought chuckles from around the room. Of course, their primitive ships had performed as expected. Barely well enough to reach the station without breaking down. Dr. Kim Hee-jin walked through the science section of Nexus 7 with her hands behind her back, looking like a curious tourist. She wore a simple lab coat and carried basic recording equipment, nothing that would make anyone think she was anything more than a harmless researcher from a backward planet. But her eyes missed nothing. She noted the location of power conduits, the layout of critical systems, and the security protocols used throughout the station. Every detail was recorded in her enhanced memory and would be transmitted back to Earth through channels the aliens could never detect. "Excuse me," she said to a tall, thin alien with green skin and forearms. "I am Dr. Kim from Earth. I study different forms of life. Could you tell me about your species?" The alien looked down at her with obvious amusement. "I am researcher, Vextil of the Hegemony. We are the Zethkari. We have been exploring space for over 2,000 years. "Fascinating," said Dr. Kim, making notes on her simple tablet. "And your technology for space travel?" Vextil laughed. "Child, your people have barely learned to leave their own star system. Our ships cross the galaxy in days. We have mastered forces your scientists cannot even imagine." Dr. Kim nodded eagerly, playing the part of an amazed primitive. "Could you show me? I would love to learn." The Zethkari researcher was clearly enjoying the chance to show off. "Come. I will demonstrate our basic scanning technology. Even this simple device is beyond your current understanding." He led her to a laboratory filled with equipment that hummed with energy. To most observers, it would look incredibly advanced. Dr. Kim recognized it immediately. The technology was actually several generations behind what Earth had developed in secret. "This scanner can analyze the atomic structure of any material," Vextil explained proudly. "We can determine the composition of objects from great distances." "Amazing," breathed Dr. Kim. "How does it work?" As the alien began explaining the principles, Dr. Kim realized that the Hegemony's advanced scanning technology had significant limitations. It could not penetrate certain materials. It had trouble with layered compositions, and it was easily fooled by electromagnetic interference. Information that would be very useful when Earth needed to hide things from alien scanners. Back in the Yor diplomatic hall, more alien representatives were arriving. Captain Choi Min-ho watched from the observation deck of his ship, the Busan Dawn. To anyone looking at it, his vessel appeared to be a simple cargo hauler, boxy, slow, and equipped, with only basic systems. "Captain," said his first officer, Lieutenant Nam Seo-jin, "the Krillian war clans are requesting permission to inspect our cargo." "What reason did they give?" "Security concerns. They say all civilian vessels need to be checked for contraband." Choi smiled. The Krillians were known throughout the galaxy as aggressive warriors who solved problems with brute force. They probably genuinely believed that checking cargo would improve security. "Grant permission," he said, "but escort them personally. Make sure they see exactly what we want them to see." 20 minutes later, a group of Krillian soldiers boarded the Busan Dawn. They were large, muscular beings with thick gray skin and prominent ridges along their skulls. They wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could punch through steel. General Baxthul led the inspection team. He was a veteran warrior whose scars told the story of countless battles. He looked at Captain Choi with barely concealed contempt. "Human," he growled. We will examine your cargo. Do not interfere. Of course, General, replied Choi politely. Please, this way. He led them through his ship's corridors. The Krillians saw exactly what they expected. Narrow passages, basic lighting, simple control panels. Everything looked crude and primitive compared to their advanced warships. The cargo holds contained exactly what the manifest claimed: diplomatic supplies, cultural exchange materials, and food from Earth. The Krillians scanned everything thoroughly, but found nothing suspicious. What they did not see were the hidden compartments built into the ship's structure. They did not notice that some of the cultural materials were actually advanced sensor equipment. They completely missed the fact that the ship's hull was made of materials that did not exist in any known database. Satisfied? Asked Captain Choi when they finished. General Baxthul grunted. Your ship is as pathetic as we expected. How did you even reach this station without breaking down? Very carefully, replied Choi with a self-deprecating smile. The Krillians left, convinced that the human cargo ship was harmless. General Baxthul made a mental note to ignore the human fleet entirely if any military action became necessary. They were clearly not worth worrying about. In the main diplomatic hall, the formal presentations were beginning. Each major power took turns displaying their achievements and capabilities. The Velthari showed holographic displays of their massive fleets and conquered worlds. The hegemony demonstrated their advanced technology and trade networks. The Krillians performed a war dance that made the floor vibrate. Ambassador Park watched it all with polite interest, applauding at appropriate moments and asking innocent questions that made her seem impressed by everything she saw. And now, announced the session moderator, we invite our newest member to present their civilization. Park stood up and walked to the presentation area. The small stage made her look even tinier next to the displays of alien power and achievement. A simple, holographic projector was provided for her use, basic equipment that most species would consider outdated. Thank you, she began, her voice calm and clear. Earth is a young world. We have been in space for less than a century. We have much to learn from all of you. She activated the projector, showing images of Earth, blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. It looked beautiful but unremarkable, just another garden world among millions. Our population is small, only about 8 billion people. We have 1 moon, 9 planets in our system, and we have just begun to explore nearby stars. The images changed to show human cities, human technology, human space stations. Everything looked primitive compared to galactic standards. The aliens, in the audience, began to lose interest. We hope to learn from your wisdom and experience, Park continued. We offer friendship and peaceful cooperation with all civilizations. She showed images of human art, music, and literature. Some aliens perked up. Cultural materials often had trade value. But overall, the presentation was exactly what everyone expected: a primitive species trying to make a good impression. High Admiral Crexmore stood up when she finished. Thank you, Ambassador Park. Very quaint. Tell me, how many worlds has your species colonized? None yet, Park replied honestly. We are still learning. And your military capabilities? How do you defend your single world from threats? This was the question everyone wanted answered. How could such a weak species survive in a dangerous galaxy? We prefer peaceful solutions, Park said carefully. But we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. With 12 small ships? The Admiral's voice was mocking. Ambassador, I could destroy your entire fleet with 1 squadron of fighters. Laughter rippled through the hall. The humans had revealed exactly how weak they were. Perhaps, replied Park quietly. But we hope that will never be necessary. More laughter. These humans were not just weak, they were naive. They actually believed that talking would protect them from the harsh realities of galactic politics. Trademaster Quindal of the Hegemony stood up next. He was a sleek, efficient-looking alien with silver skin and large black eyes. Ambassador, Park, what can your world offer in trade? What resources do you have that we might want? This was another test. Species without valuable resources were often ignored or exploited by the major powers. We have agricultural products, raw materials, and some unique cultural items, Park replied. We also offer our friendship and cooperation. Quindal's expression showed polite skepticism. Agricultural products were common throughout the galaxy. Raw materials could be found on uninhabited worlds without dealing with primitive natives, and friendship was worthless unless backed by power. I see, he said diplomatically. We will consider trade opportunities in the future. Translation: We are not interested in anything you have to offer. Captain Lee watched from his seat as the various alien powers continued to probe and test the human delegation. Every question was designed to reveal weaknesses. Every response was analyzed for signs of hidden strength or valuable resources. The humans passed every test by failing it completely. They appeared exactly as weak and primitive as the aliens expected. But Lee noticed other things. He saw how the different alien factions watched each other. The Velthari and Hegemony were clearly rivals, competing for influence. The Krillians were allied with neither side, preferring to remain independent. Smaller species were forced to choose sides or risk being conquered. It was a complicated political situation, full of tensions and potential conflicts. Earth was walking into the middle of a powder keg. On his ship, Commander Yoon received regular reports from Dr. Kim and the other intelligence operatives scattered throughout the station. The information painted a clear picture. The aliens were powerful but overconfident. They had advanced technology but had grown complacent. Most importantly, they genuinely believed that humans were harmless. The morning of the fleet demonstration began with a spectacular display of alien naval power. High Admiral Crexmore had assembled over 50 Velthari warships in perfect formation around Nexus 7. Each vessel was a masterpiece of military engineering, massive, heavily armed, and designed to inspire fear in any enemy. Captain Shin Yuri watched from the bridge of her ship, the Incheon Voyager. To anyone observing, her vessel looked like the most harmless ship in the human fleet. It appeared to be nothing more than a simple exploration craft with basic sensors and minimal weapons. Captain, said her navigation officer, Ensign O Tai Min, the Velthari are requesting that all civilian vessels move to safe observation positions. Of course, replied Shin calmly. Take us to the designated area. Make sure our engines look like they're working hard to keep up. The Incheon Voyager moved slowly toward the observation zone, its engines sputtering occasionally as if struggling with the maneuver. Other alien civilian ships moved easily to their positions, their advanced propulsion systems making the task look effortless. On the Soul's Pride, Ambassador Park stood on the bridge next to Captain Lee, watching the alien fleet arrange itself for the demonstration. The formation was impressive, a perfect example of military discipline and coordination. They certainly know how to put on a show, Lee commented quietly. That's exactly what this is, Park replied. A show designed to intimidate us into submission. Through the communication channels, they could hear Admiral Crexmore addressing the gathered observers. His voice was filled with pride and barely contained arrogance. Citizens of the galaxy, he announced, today you will witness the power that has kept peace throughout civilized space for over 3 centuries. The Velthari Imperial Navy stands ready to defend all who accept our protection. The first part of the demonstration began with a display of firepower. Target drones were released into empty space, and the Velthari ships opened fire. Energy beams and missiles streaked across the darkness, destroying the targets with overwhelming force. The alien observers were suitably impressed. The humans appeared to be amazed by the display of advanced weaponry. Incredible, whispered Dr. Kim Hyejin, who was recording everything from the science observation deck. To the aliens around her, she looked like a primitive human who had never seen real military technology. But her enhanced recording equipment was analyzing every aspect of the demonstration. Weapon frequencies, power output, targeting systems, defensive capabilities. All of it was being cataloged for later study. The second phase showed tactical maneuvers. The Velthari fleet split into attack formations, performed complex flanking movements, and demonstrated coordinated assault patterns. It was an impressive display of naval doctrine developed over centuries of warfare. Commander Yoon watched from his ship and made careful notes. The alien tactics were sophisticated but predictable. They relied on overwhelming firepower and traditional military formations. Against a conventional enemy, they would be nearly unstoppable. Against an unconventional enemy, they might have problems. "Sir," said his sensor operator, Petty Officer Lee Sung-min, "I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the edge of the system." Yoon checked his displays. Something was moving in the outer system, but the signatures were faint and intermittent. "Can you identify it?" "No, sir. The readings don't match any known ship types." Yoon felt a chill run down his spine. Earth's intelligence services had warned that something dangerous might be moving through this region of space, something that saw organic life as nothing more than raw material to be consumed. The Devourers. On the Busan Dawn, Captain Choi Min-ho was receiving similar sensor readings. His ship's disguised scanning equipment was much more powerful than it appeared, and it was detecting multiple contacts approaching the system at high speed. "How many?" he asked quietly. "At least 30 ships, sir," replied his tactical officer. "Possibly more. They're using some kind of stealth technology." Choi activated his secure communication system. Within seconds, he was connected to Commander. "Yoon and the other human ship captains, gentlemen," he said without preamble. "We have incoming hostiles, unknown configuration, but they match the profiles we were warned about." The response was immediate. All 12 human ships began subtle preparations while maintaining their harmless appearances. Weapon systems came online behind false hull plating. Defensive screens charged up while disguised as routine power fluctuations. Combat crews moved to battle stations under the pretense of conducting routine maintenance. To any observer, the human ships continued to look exactly the same, small, primitive, and harmless. But they were ready. The Velthari demonstration continued, unaware of the approaching danger. Admiral Crexmore was in the middle of a speech about the importance of military strength when the first Devourer ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They appeared without warning at the edge of the system, dark, organic-looking vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their hulls pulsed with veins of sickly green energy, and strange appendages writhed along their surfaces. The alien observers fell silent. These ships didn't match any known design in galactic databases. "Unknown vessels," transmitted Admiral Crexmore. "Identify yourselves immediately. You are entering Velthari space without permission." The response came not in words, but in action. The Devourer ships accelerated toward Nexus 7 at impossible speeds, their weapons already charging. "For combat, all ships, battle stations," ordered Crexmore. "Protect the station." The Velthari fleet moved to intercept, their perfect formations shifting into defensive positions around Nexus 7. It was an impressive response to an unexpected threat, but they had never faced an enemy like the Devourers. The first exchange of fire lit up space with energy beams and explosions. The Velthari weapons struck the approaching ships but seemed to have little effect. The Devourer hulls absorbed the energy and somehow grew stronger. Return fire from the Devourers was devastatingly effective. Their weapons didn't just destroy. They dissolved matter at the molecular level, leaving empty space where proud warships had been seconds before. "By the stars," whispered Captain Lee as he watched a Velthari cruiser simply vanish under enemy fire. "What are those things?" "Death," replied Ambassador Park grimly. "Pure, hungry death." The battle was going badly for the defenders. The Devourer. Ships seemed immune to conventional weapons, and their own firepower was beyond anything the aliens had ever encountered. More Velthari ships were destroyed with each passing minute. Other alien fleets joined the fight. Hegemony vessels appeared from behind the station, their sleek ships adding their advanced weapons to the defense. Krillian warships charged straight at the enemy, their crews preferring to die fighting rather than retreat. It made no difference. The Devourers cut through them all. On Nexus 7, panic was spreading. Civilian ships were trying to evacuate, but the Devourer vessels were moving to surround the station. Soon there would be no escape. "Captain," said Commander Yoon's communication officer, "the station is sending a general distress call. They're requesting assistance from any ship capable of fighting. Yoon looked around his bridge. His crew was ready. His ship was ready. But if they revealed their true capabilities now, Earth's carefully constructed deception would be exposed. On the other hand, if they did nothing, everyone in the system would die, including the human diplomatic mission. "Sir?" asked his tactical officer. "Orders?" Before Yoon could respond, Captain Shin's voice came over the secure channel. "I can't watch this anymore. I'm engaging." "Wait," ordered Yoon. "Let me check with—" "No, time," interrupted Shin. "They're about to fire on the evacuation ships. I'm going in." The Incheon Voyager suddenly accelerated away from the observation area. To the aliens watching, it looked like the human ship was fleeing in panic, a reasonable response from such a primitive vessel. But Captain Shin was not fleeing. She was attacking. The Incheon Voyager's hull began to change as it moved. Panels slid aside to reveal weapon ports that hadn't been there moments before. The ship's simple boxy design flowed like liquid metal into something sleek and deadly. Advanced targeting systems locked onto the nearest devourer ship. Weapons that didn't appear in any galactic database powered up with barely contained energy. "In the depths is that human ship doing?" demanded Admiral Crexmore as he watched the transformation. His question was answered when the Incheon Voyager opened fire. Beams of pure energy struck the devourer vessel, and for the first time in the battle, one of the enemy ships was damaged, not destroyed but visibly hurt. The devourer turned toward this new threat, its attention focused on the small human ship that had dared to fight back. Captain Shin smiled grimly. "Come on then," she muttered. "Let's see what you're really made of." The battle was about to change in ways that no one, human or alien, could have predicted. But the transformation of the Incheon Voyager was just the beginning. Across the human fleet, other ships were preparing to shed their disguises and reveal what Earth had really sent to this gathering of galactic powers. The tiny Armada was about to show its true face. The moment Captain Shin opened fire, everything changed. Admiral Song Kyung-min materialized as a hologram on the bridge of every human ship. The woman wore the uniform of Earth's true naval command, a rank and organization that no alien database had ever recorded. "All ships," she said calmly. "You are authorized for full combat operations. Protect the civilians, eliminate the threat, show them who we really are." Commander Yoon felt a surge of relief as the pretense finally ended. "You heard the Admiral," he announced to his crew. "Battle stations, full power. Let's save these people." Across the human fleet, 12 ships began to transform. The Soul's Pride was the first to change after the Incheon Voyager. Captain Lee watched his ship's readings as systems that had been hidden for months finally came online. The hull reconfigured itself, revealing weapon ports, sensor arrays, and defensive systems that belonged on a ship 10 times larger. "Ambassador," he said to Park Soo-jin, "you might want to hold on to something." She gripped her chair as the ship's inertial dampeners engaged fully for the first time since leaving Earth. The Soul's Pride accelerated toward the battle at speeds that should have been impossible for a vessel of its apparent size. Captain Choi's cargo ship, the Busan Dawn, underwent the most dramatic transformation. What had appeared to be a simple rectangular cargo hauler split apart like a blooming flower. The cargo containers were actually compact fighter craft, and they launched in perfect formation toward the devourer ships. But they weren't ordinary fighters. Each one was piloted by an artificial intelligence more advanced than most species' entire computer networks. They moved with inhuman precision, dodging enemy fire and striking back with weapons that bent the laws of physics. "What are those things?" demanded General Baxthul as he watched the human fighters dance through space. His own pilots were skilled warriors, but these craft moved like they could predict the future. On the bridge of his command ship, he tried to analyze the strange human vessels. His computers reported impossible readings. The ships were simultaneously solid and incorporeal, their hulls somehow existing in multiple dimensions at once. "Sir," reported his tactical officer, "one of the human fighters just flew through a devourer ship and came out the other side. The enemy vessel is dissolving from the inside." Baxthul stared at the display in disbelief. Nothing could phase through solid matter like that. It was impossible. But the evidence was right in front of him. Captain An Su-young commanded what had appeared to be the smallest ship in the human fleet, a tiny escort vessel called the Jeju Guardian. Now, as its camouflage fell away, it revealed itself to be something completely different. The ship didn't just grow larger, it seemed to unfold from dimensions that shouldn't exist. Within minutes, the tiny escort had become a battleship that dwarfed even the largest Velthari. Dreadnought. Impossible, whispered High Admiral Crexmore as he watched the transformation. Mass cannot be created from nothing. It violates every known law of physics. But the Jeju Guardian was already proving that human understanding of physics was far beyond galactic standards. The massive ship moved through space like it weighed nothing, its engines warping reality around them. Dr. Kang Woo-jin appeared on the communication channels, his image transmitted to every ship in the system. The elderly scientist wore the insignia of Earth's Advanced Technology Division, another organization that had never appeared in any alien intelligence report. "Attention all vessels," he announced calmly. "You are witnessing the practical application of dimensional engineering. Our ships exist partially outside normal spacetime, allowing them to store mass and energy in compressed dimensional pockets." He spoke like he was giving a lecture to students, completely ignoring the life-and-death battle raging around him. "The technology also allows for selective interaction with matter," he continued. "Our weapons can strike targets while our hulls remain intangible. We call it phase combat doctrine." The aliens listening were too shocked to respond. The humans had just revealed technology that was centuries ahead of anything in the galaxy. But the demonstration was far from over. The battle against the Devourers had become a completely different conflict. Where before the alien fleets had been slowly losing ground, the arrival of the human ships turned the tide instantly. The Incheon Voyager engaged 3 Devourer vessels simultaneously. Captain Shin's ship phased in and out of normal space, appearing behind enemies to strike vital systems before vanishing again. Her weapons seemed to adapt in real time, changing frequency and power output to overcome enemy defenses. "How is she doing that?" demanded Trademaster Quindal from his observation ship. His enhanced sensors were recording everything, but the data made no sense. The human ship's weapons were somehow learning from each shot. When the Devourers adapted their defenses, the human weapons evolved to counter the adaptation. It was like watching a technological evolution happening in seconds instead of millennia. Commander Yoon coordinated the human fleet with casual efficiency. His ships moved like parts of a single organism, each vessel knowing exactly where the others would be at any given moment. "Busan Dawn fighters sweep the left flank. Seoul's Pride target the command ship. Jeju Guardian protect the evacuation vessels." Orders flowed smoothly between ships that were somehow communicating faster than light itself. The human fleet responded to threats and opportunities with impossible precision. Colonel Lim Dong-woo led a boarding operation that defied all logic. His Special Forces team somehow teleported directly from their ship onto a Devourer vessel, bypassing shields, hulls, and vacuum without any visible technology. They fought inside the enemy ship with weapons that seemed to reshape themselves for each situation. When they needed to cut through armor, their tools became molecular disruptors. When they faced energy beings, the same devices became containment fields. "Sir," reported Lim to Admiral Song, "we've secured the enemy command center. Their technology is biological, but it's based on principles we understand. We can counter it." The Admiral nodded. "Upload the data to all ships. Let's end this." Information flowed through the human fleet at quantum speeds. Every ship instantly received detailed analysis of Devourer technology, complete with tactical recommendations and countermeasures. The battle lasted another 10 minutes. When it was over, the space around Nexus 7 was filled with the wreckage of Devourer ships. Not a single human vessel had been lost. More importantly, the civilian evacuation ships had all been protected, their passengers safe. The alien fleets floated in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. High Admiral Crexmore's Flagship was heavily damaged, its bridge crew injured but alive. The Admiral himself stood amid the wreckage, staring at the human ships through his cracked view screen. The 12 vessels were already returning to their original disguised forms. Weapon ports closed, hulls reshaped, and advanced systems disappeared, behind false plating. Within minutes, they looked exactly like the primitive ships that had arrived at the station days earlier. But everyone who had witnessed the battle knew the truth now. Fleet. Admiral Nam Ji-won materialized as a hologram in the center of the diplomatic hall on Nexus 7. She was an elderly woman with gray hair and calm eyes, wearing a uniform that marked her as the Supreme Commander of Earth's naval forces. "Citizens of the galaxy," she said, her voice carrying easily through the damaged station's communication systems. "I am Fleet Admiral Nam Ji-won of the Earth Defense Force. I apologize for the deception, but it was necessary." The hall was packed, with alien representatives, all of them staring at the hologram in shock. Ambassador Park stood beside the projector, no longer bothering to hide her confident smile. "The ships you just saw represent a small portion of Earth's defensive capabilities," Admiral Nam continued. "We have been preparing for threats like the Devourers for over 50 years. Our scientists have developed technology specifically designed to counter species that view organic life as nothing more than resources to be consumed." Dr. Kang Woo-jin appeared beside the Admiral, his hologram displaying technical diagrams that made alien scientists gasp in amazement. "Our dimensional engineering allows us to hide our true military strength while appearing weak and primitive," he explained. "This deception serves two purposes. It allows us to study potential threats, and it prevents unnecessary conflicts with peaceful species." High Admiral Krexmore's image appeared on the communication channel, transmitted from his damaged flagship. The proud Velthari officer looked like he had aged years in the past hour. "Admiral Nam," he said slowly, "how many ships does Earth actually possess?" The human admiral smiled slightly. "More than you might expect, Admiral, but fewer than we would deploy against a genuine threat to galactic civilization." It was a diplomatic answer that told the aliens exactly what they needed to know. Earth was far more powerful than it appeared, but it wasn't interested in conquest. "Why didn't you reveal this before?" asked Trademaster Quindal. His voice filled. With a mixture of awe and suspicion, Ambassador Park stepped forward to answer. "Because we needed to know who we were dealing with. We needed to understand the political situation, the various power structures, and most importantly, how different species would react to what they perceived as weakness." 3 days after the battle, Nexus 7 had become the most important place in the galaxy. Ships were arriving from every major civilization, not to show off their power, but to seek alliance with Earth. President Ro Hyan-soo arrived aboard a ship that made every alien vessel look primitive in comparison. The vessel was sleek and elegant, its hull seeming to bend light around it. When it docked at the station, even the massive Velthari dreadnoughts looked clumsy by comparison. "Welcome to the new reality," Admiral Song said as she greeted the president at the airlock. President Ro was a calm, thoughtful woman who had led Earth through 50 years of secret preparation for this moment. She walked through the station's corridors with quiet confidence, her presence immediately changing the atmosphere around her. In the diplomatic hall, now hastily repaired after the battle damage, representatives from across the galaxy waited to meet Earth's leader. The seating arrangement had changed dramatically. The human delegation now occupied the center position, with other species arranged around them. "Citizens of the galaxy," President Ro began, her voice carrying easily through the hall's communication systems. 3 days ago, you witnessed the end of one era and the beginning of another. The age of deception is over. The age of cooperation must begin. She activated a holographic display that showed star charts spanning the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated systems that had gone silent in recent months, worlds consumed by the Devourer swarm. "The enemy we face is unlike anything in recorded history. They do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They consume all organic life and convert it into more of themselves. If we fight them separately, we will fall separately." The display changed to show projected invasion routes. The swarm was moving through the outer rim of the galaxy, systematically destroying everything in its path. At their current rate of expansion, they would reach the core worlds within 5 years. But, continued the president, if we unite our knowledge and resources, we can not only survive, we can push them back. Captain Hong Minji chose that moment to make her entrance. She commanded Earth's actual exploration fleet, hundreds of ships that had been secretly mapping the galaxy for decades. Her vessels were smaller than the diplomatic fleet, but their technology was even more advanced. President Rowe, she announced as her image appeared in the hall, the reconnaissance fleet has completed its survey of the outer rim. We've identified 17 Devourer breeding worlds and approximately 3 million combat vessels. The numbers sent shockwaves through the assembled delegates. 3 million ships was larger than all the galaxy's combined military forces. However, Captain Hong continued with a slight smile, we've also identified weaknesses in their network. Their hive mind operates through quantum entanglement communication. Disrupt that communication, and their coordination collapses. Master, Engineer Park Chan-woo stepped forward with technical diagrams that made the aliens' most advanced scientists lean forward in fascination. Our ships can generate quantum interference fields, he explained. We've tested the technology against captured Devourer specimens. It works, but it requires precise coordination across multiple star systems. The implications were clear. No single civilization could generate the required interference pattern. It would take the combined efforts of every major power in the far galaxy. High Admiral Crexmore, his arm still in a medical support device from the battle, was the first to speak. Admiral Song, what exactly are you proposing? Complete technological integration, replied the Admiral without hesitation. We share our dimensional engineering. You share your manufacturing capabilities. Together, we build a defensive network that can protect every inhabited world. Trademaster Quindall looked skeptical. And after the threat is defeated? What guarantee do we have that Earth won't use this combined technology to dominate the galaxy? President Rowe smiled. Because we've had the power to dominate the galaxy for 20 years and we chose not to, we could have revealed ourselves as conquerors. Instead, we revealed ourselves as protectors. She gestured to the assembled representatives. Look around this room. 3 days ago, most of you considered yourselves the apex of galactic civilization. Today, you know that a single human exploration vessel could disable your entire fleet without breaking its hull. The truth of that statement hung in the air. The battle had proven beyond doubt that human technology was generations ahead of anything else in the galaxy. But, continued the president, we need you. Our ships are advanced, but we don't have enough of them to protect every world. Our technology is sophisticated, but your industrial capacity can produce it on the scale we need. Dr. Kang Woo-jin activated another holographic display, this one showing production estimates. With Velthari manufacturing, hegemony distribution networks, and Krillian raw materials, we can upgrade every defensive installation in the galaxy within 2 years. General Baxthul, who had remained silent through most of the discussion, suddenly spoke up. What about species that refuse to cooperate? What about civilizations that try to make deals with the Devourers? It was a valid concern. Not every species would be willing to join a galaxy-wide alliance, especially one led by the previously unknown humans. The Devourers don't make deals, replied Admiral Song grimly. They consume organic life, all organic life. Anyone who tries to negotiate with them will simply be eaten more efficiently. She activated a recording from one of the captured Devourer ships. The images showed species that had attempted to surrender or negotiate. All of them had been converted into biological components for more Devourer vessels. But, added Ambassador Park, any civilization that genuinely wants to remain neutral will be protected anyway. We're not interested in forced conversion to our cause. President Rowe nodded approvingly. The alliance we're proposing is voluntary, but the protection we're offering is universal. Every inhabited world deserves the right to exist. Over the following hours, the details of the alliance were hammered out. Earth would provide advanced technology and tactical expertise. The Velthari would contribute their massive industrial infrastructure. The hegemony would handle logistics and resource distribution. The Krillians would provide raw materials and ground forces. Smaller civilizations would contribute what they could. Some had unique technologies, others had strategic locations, and a few simply offered their worlds as refugees for evacuated populations. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Kim Hyejin presented her analysis of galactic civilizations. "We've been studying all of you for years," she admitted. "Not to find weaknesses to exploit, but to understand how different species think and solve problems." She activated a display showing the unique contributions each civilization could make to the Alliance. The Zethkari have developed mathematical models that our computers can't replicate. The Taraki have biological engineering that surpasses our own. The Velthari have tactical doctrines that have worked for centuries. Her point was clear: Earth was advanced, but they weren't perfect. The Alliance would make everyone stronger. Commander Yoon, who had been monitoring fleet movements throughout the negotiations, suddenly interrupted with an urgent report. "President, we have multiple contacts approaching the system. Unknown configuration, but they're not devourers." The main display switched to show long-range sensor readings. A massive fleet was approaching Nexus 7, but these ships were clearly built by familiar civilizations. "It's the Outer Rim Coalition," announced Captain Lee from the Soul's Pride. "They're requesting permission to join the negotiations." The Outer Rim Coalition represented dozens of smaller civilizations that had been ignored or exploited by the major powers. Their arrival meant that news of the Alliance was spreading faster than anyone had expected. "Grant them permission to approach," ordered President Rowe. "It seems our alliance is attracting attention." Over the next day, representatives from over 100 different species arrived at Nexus 7. Some came seeking protection, others offering assistance, and a few simply wanting to witness the formation of the first truly galaxy-wide alliance in recorded history. The negotiations became complex as more voices joined the discussion, but the core principles remained the same: voluntary cooperation, shared technology, and mutual protection. High Admiral Crexmore, who had begun the week as the most powerful military officer in the galaxy, found himself working alongside humans, who had been dismissing as primitives just days earlier. "Admiral Song," he said during a private meeting, "I owe you an apology." "No, you don't," she replied immediately. "You reacted exactly as we expected. More importantly, you proved that you're willing to protect civilians even when facing an unknown threat. That's the kind of character we can work with." The final signing ceremony took place exactly 1 week after the Devourer attack. Over 300 species signed the Galactic Defense Alliance, committing to shared protection and mutual cooperation. As the ceremony concluded, Captain Shin approached Commander Yoon with a message from Earth Command. "Sir, the home fleet is requesting permission to come out of stealth. They want to begin joint training exercises with our new allies." Yoon smiled. "How many ships are we talking about?" "Approximately 50,000 vessels, sir, plus support infrastructure."